Welcome back to Gator Games Fan TV. It is the day after Kerry became All-Ireland Senior Football Champions after they beat Donegal in the All-Ireland Football Final. And I'm joined by Seamus Brady from Outclassed to review the game, discuss the game in great detail, run through all the talking points, the aftermath, the chat online, what people have been saying on social media. And of course, as well, we're going to take a look at All-Stars as well. So we're going to be going through, I suppose, more so my team, but Seamus is definitely going to weigh in on in terms of opinions as well, and I definitely want to get some of your opinions in the comments as well, if you can. So I suppose, Seamus, it's mad to think. I know we still have the ladies' football and camogie final to go, but in terms of the men's game, it is done and dusted for 2025 in terms of inter-county football and inter-county hurling. So yeah, like kind of incredible to think, and I suppose for us dubs, maybe not so great to see Kerry win the All Ireland, but I think when you put tribalism and everything else aside, you have to say Kerry were more than deserved champions, if we're being brutally honest.
Yeah, they absolutely were. I think when it's all said and done, Kerry have more than proved themselves as the best team in the country right now this year. When you think about the journey that they've been on as a group, when you think about the players that they have lost along the way to injury, like there's no way that Jim O'Connor was right, even though he came on. Tom O'Sullivan got injured as well. These are massive losses. Tyg Morley as well. But then that forces the emergence of new stars. Like Mike Breen was absolutely unbelievable. Dylan Casey has nailed down a starting position for himself. Brino Bjuklik has then gone strength to strength to strength because he now is one of the most experienced players in that defence for Kerry. And Gavin White's performances this year have been through the roof. We've seen Joe O'Connor step up because Kerry needed a midfield general to step up, and then in the forward line, this has been different. It's been the usual suspects, but they've been even better this year. Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea, and David Clifford himself, one of the greats already. We'll get into whether he's the greatest of all time later in terms of that discussion. But yeah, he's without doubt up there. And yeah, looking forward to it. Kerry, 100% the better team. I think, unfortunately for Donegal, it does give off the same energy in a way of 2014, where if Donegal are being brutally honest with themselves, did they leave it all out there? No, they didn't. They didn't throw the kitchen sink at it the way that they could have. And I think, yeah, they might feel like they left this one behind them a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's the opening 15 minutes, the opening 15, 20 minutes. I think they just never really recovered after that. And I think Jim McGuinness even said they were chasing their tails really after that. Like they were 12 points to 4 down after about 15 to 20 minutes. And although, like, I thought Donegal played well after that, they did well to keep the game somewhat of a contest, and they drew it down to 5 points. I think they drew it down to 4 at one stage. You're thinking maybe there's a chance here. It always felt like Kerry were comfortable at the same time, though. It always felt like Kerry just needed to go up a gear every now and again just to kind of keep the scoreboard ticking. And it felt like really the damage was done, but it was really those opening 10, 15 minutes where like the game was won and lost, because Kerry came flying out of the blocks, and it just looked like Donegal didn't have an answer, to be honest.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I did tweet on the Outclassed page after 50 minutes. I was like, this game's already getting away from Donegal, and they have to get after this quickly because Kerry could accelerate this gap out to 20 points if you let them. And the reality is, what we've seen from Kerry, one of the major traits of their season has been ruthless efficiency when it comes to, putting their foot down on teams when they have the upper hand. I mean, they absolutely crushed Armagh in that third quarter. They buried Tyrone in the third quarter. And in this game, they buried Donegal in that first quarter. As Jim said, as you pointed out, they were chasing their tails. They were completely on the back foot for the rest of the game, Donegal. And I couldn't believe how poorly they started. Like, Kerry punished them for every mistake that Donegal made. I think the first wide came after, I think it was 10 and a half minutes. It was crazy efficient in that first period. And Donegal were the same. Donegal were efficient with their scoring, but they weren't creating enough chances. And this was the main thing. So there's a few things looking back on that, in hindsight, were terrible decisions. And even at the time, I was like, but you have such faith in McGuinness because he's one of the best tacticians I've seen, that when he does certain things, you're like, okay, I don't fully understand this, but, Jim has proved us wrong before. And maybe this is another example of that. Like when I see Kieran Moore going over to pick up Joe O'Connor at the start, I'm like, okay, interesting matchup, but wouldn't have been the one I would have picked. But maybe McGuinness is onto something here. I was like, I would have put Finbar Orty out on Paddy Clifford, or I would have put Mogan on him, or I would have put Kieran Moore on him, someone that can keep up the pace and stay with him wherever he goes and is comfortable with him wherever he goes. But Paddy Clifford was given the freedom of Croke Park. They played the zonal defence and Paddy was able to run through the lines. You're not going to be able to stop David Clifford. Like, that's not a hindsight thing. You're not going to be able to stop him. He is going to do damage regardless of who you put on him. But then the next one was, why on earth did they not do something about Gavin White sooner? It was clear from the very first play of the game that Gavin White was up for it. Running forward, setting up the first point for Kerry. His powerful running in that first quarter was the biggest feature of the game and one of the most important reasons why Kerry got so far ahead. I don't understand why it took them so long to switch it and put Kieran Moore on Gavin White. Then that stopped the runs to some degree. Don't get me wrong, Gavin White was still amazing in the second half, but he's an amazing player. You're going to be able to quell him, but not fully stop him. It's the equivalent of putting someone like Paddy Durkin on Jack McCaffrey. Did Jack McCaffrey still have a great game? Yes, he did. But Paddy Durkin did a better job on him than maybe someone else would have. And that was a big mistake that Donegal made. It was a big mistake, in my opinion, putting Kieran Moore on Joe O'Connor, because Joe O'Connor absolutely bossed the skies for Kerry in that first quarter. And then it was a massive, massive mistake to play zonal against Paddy, because Paddy was able to just breeze through the lines, link everything up together. And then eventually they got stuck into Paddy with about 15 minutes to go. I was like, it's far too late now. Damage is already done. And I think that's the main thing where I'm surprised at the tactical and matchup mistakes that they made. And that's not me speaking in hindsight. I was genuinely surprised when I seen Moore go on to O'Connor. I was surprised when I didn't see anybody particularly marking Gavin White. I just trusted in McGuinness a lot, that McGuinness knew what he was doing, and you can't doubt the man when he has the CV that McGuinness has and the track record that McGuinness has. But unfortunately, I think those tactics proved to be a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to that in a moment. Gavin says here, I think a bit like Cork, Donegal's lack of a test in a semi didn't really help. Also says here, credit to Armagh last year, because if not Kerry or Dublin, it's so hard to break that ceiling. If you look at Derry, Monaghan and Galway's missed opportunities, it could be the same for Donegal. Yeah, it's the hardest thing to kind of get over the line. And I think the more you miss that opportunity, the harder it gets. We're seeing that with the Cork hurlers as an example. We've seen it in the past with Mayo. We've saw it as well with Galway. So many examples that when you don't make that breakthrough, it just gets harder and harder every time. Gavin says pitch squares were awful, by the way. Do you know what? At first I was a bit like, yeah, that looks a little bit weird. But then, to be honest with you, I kind of just forgot about it. Once the game started, I kind of just went away. Yeah, I know you've worked in Croke Park before. So what was, in your opinion, what was that? What was all that about?
Oh, I have no idea. I think that's just I don't know. Give it something new. Give it something different. I mean, if you look at the team there, it's an amazing team in the stadium. From across the board, the pitch, are some of the best around. The marketing side of it, the media side of it, they're always trying to do something different every year. They're trying to add something different every year. I mean, you only realize that when you look back. You look back at the 2017 All-Ireland final with Dublin and Mayo, where they had the planes fly over the pitch before the game. And then you look at, the first year that they started riding Pell on the pitch again, and that's become now a new thing. You look at the 90s, where they used to have the old GA crest on the middle of the pitch and everything like that. They have, and then even 2024, my personal favorite, when they put the fire machines on the side of the pitch, and that was something that they hadn't done. This year, they've done updates as well, like the screens for the sponsors that go around the pitch. That's a new addition that I seen first, actually, when I was at a basketball game with the Ireland team against Serbia. Sorry, not Serbia, Kosovo. And that was in the Basketball Ireland arena. And I was wondering, I'd be interested to see what they would work at. Bang! Next game out was Nafina against Sarsfields in the All Ireland Hurling Club final, and they were making their debut in Croke Park. Bit by bit, they're trying different things, and the diamonds on the pitch, as I like to call them, even though they're being referred to as a million different things, the diamonds on the pitch I thought was a pretty cool thing. Maybe not to be done every year, but you have to switch it up every once in a while.
Yeah, Yonder says here, Donegal seemed very flat from the off, too occupied with stupid stunts like leaving the pre-match parade. Kerry were dialed in from the start, just concentrating on the football. And Brian says, what were Donegal? Zonal is a very dangerous system. You're making space and waiting for players come into your area. Yeah, it was just like what you said earlier, Seamus. It was very naive in many ways. Kind of watching Donegal, the way they set up, and I was kind of the same watching the game. One of my friends who's also like a big Dublin fan, we were kind of watching and thinking like, what on earth are they doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just so easy for Kerry. Like, Donegal were sat off. It was just a simple tactic of defending the arc and sort of letting Gavin White have the ball, letting Kerry players have the ball. But like, have we not learned from what Armagh tried to do something very similar and they got absolutely crucified when they did something similar? Like, Kerry have, like, fair enough, when you do that versus Meath, when you do that versus Monaghan, when you do that, maybe against certain teams in Ulster as well, in an Ulster championship with a smaller pitch and everything else where it's more intense, I can get why you do that a little bit more because it's a little bit more low scoring. But against Kerry, like, Kerry have some of the best shooters in the business, from Sean O'Shea and David Clifford. And you've seen them, like, they don't miss. They might miss the odd opportunity here and there, but the way Kerry have been playing, they don't miss. So very naive, I think, from Jim McGuinness. And I think we probably look at Jim McGuinness maybe sometimes as this sort of aura of invincibility, maybe a little bit sometimes, because of what he done with Donegal in 2012, from where he took them in 2010 to 2012 was nothing short of remarkable. But did he get found out a little bit, do you think, yesterday?
I think it's very harsh to say found out. I think you have to take a couple of things into account. Number one, you have to take into account how good Kerry are. I mean, you could put most teams up against that Kerry team and they would struggle. They've got generational players in their forward line. They're always going to be difficult to deal with. But mistakes were made, but you're always going to make mistakes when it comes to playing against a team like that. However, I do agree that when you look at the data that was there, Armagh played a zonal system against Kerry. They got ripped apart in that third quarter. Tyrone played a relatively zonal system against Kerry. They were beaten fairly handy as well. I don't understand why Donegal then decided. We've seen two teams who we've gone to war with. Tyrone beat Donegal, and Armagh and Donegal went all the way to extra time, and Donegal shaded it by a point. We've seen both of them get beaten very handy back to back against Kerry playing a zonal system. We know that we are not far off the level of those teams. Kerry have beaten them handy. Maybe we should look at adopting a new system, adopting a different system. But then at that point, is it too late to do that? Are you too far in? Do you kind of have to stick it out at that point? It's really, really difficult to call. And the thing is, if McGuinness had it switched, and McGuinness had it twisted up, and Kerry had absolutely annihilated them, everybody then would have been saying, what on earth was McGuinness doing, changing the strategy so late into the season? What was he doing? He was trying to be a genius. Everything like that. It's hindsight in a way that now we know that it didn't work for them. It didn't work for them. But there was some data there that they might struggle against it. The other thing as well that we need to take into account when we're talking about Jim McGuinness and the job that he's done and the legacy that he's done. You mentioned his first era, where he picked them up. When he picked them up at the end of 2010 into 2011, which was his first year, Donegal were ranked number 19 in the country. They had been humiliated against Armagh in the qualifiers. Their players were not interested in representing the county to the highest standard, and McGuinness came in and changed everything. But also, everybody knows that by now. Everybody knows that by now that he came in, turned the ship around. People have forgotten alarmingly quick how shite they were in 2022.
Yeah.
They were so bad. They got relegated from Division 1 in one of the worst league campaigns I've seen. They just didn't try. They got relegated with a whimper. They lost every game after the first one when the ship started to go wrong. They didn't really do anything in the championship either. And they switched between, I think there was 3 different men in charge over the course of that year. I think started with Paddy Carr, then Aidan O'Rourke came in alongside Paddy Bradley, and then they left when the year was finished. They needed McGuinness to come in. They needed McGuinness. And I called at the time, I said that if Donegal want to be taken seriously, they need to hire Jim McGuinness. And they got Jim McGuinness back in. And everybody took it for granted that, like, okay, here we go, Donegal are going to turn around just because McGuinness is here. But we forget how much work needed to be done to turn that ship around. And the fact is, he's taken a team that got relegated in disastrous form from Division 1 and did nothing of note in the Championship of 2022. He's taken them, 2023 was when they got relegated, but he's taken that team to back-to-back Ulster titles, an All-Ireland semi-final and an All-Ireland final. He's made them a player on the biggest stage of all again. And I think that he has to get massive credit for that. Did they get over the line for the Holy Grail? Not this time. But he didn't sound to me like he was going to go at the end. He didn't sound to me like he's done. He sounds to me like he's going to stick around for another year. And I hope he does. I really, really hope he does, because he really adds to the championship. He adds to the excitement level. He definitely brings the Donegal fans on board, that's for sure. And that's a new flavour to the championship that we really, really need. And I personally think you'd be a brave man to pick that McGuinness won't get an All-Ireland in the second term.
Yeah. Like I think overall, I think he does need to change it up a little bit, I think, for next year. I think it struck to me watching Donegal. Look, they did kick 2-pointers at different stages. They certainly had moments where they kicked 2-pointers, and they did evolve with the new rules. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that they haven't evolved under the new rules. I think they have. But what I would say is that I think, it probably is one of them things where Donegal had a system in place last year that worked very well. It won them an Ulster title. It got them to an All-Ireland semi-final. They weren't too far away off beating Galway in that All-Ireland semi-final. So why you can't rip it up? You can't rip it up going into this year. They've kept something similar. They've evolved a little bit more kind of with the new rules, but I don't think they've fully embraced them the same way that a Kerry has, for example. And I'm not too sure if a zonal system wins an All-Ireland with these new rules.
Yeah, and but you are right there in terms of it definitely didn't look that way in the final. But throughout the course of the year, it has looked like Donegal have very much embraced the new rules. Like, if you go back to the league, who was the best team at kicking the 2-pointers? Donegal were the best at kicking 2-pointers. Galway had Shane Walsh. That definitely deserves to be mentioned. But if you look at Donegal were expertly kicking the 2-pointers throughout the league and the Ulster Championship. Kieran Thompson, Darragh O'Boyle, McBrearty, Michael Murphy, Oisin Gallen. They were all kicking 2-pointers and they all looked unbelievable doing it. And you're thinking, God, Donegal are really embracing these new rules here. You know, that's going to make a big difference come the championship. That would be the biggest thing that I would be disappointed about if I was a Donegal fan. It's like losing a boxing match where you never went for it. You never went for the knockout. You just kind of tip-tap-toed your way to the finish line and got beaten by a unanimous decision. It was like they just didn't really go for it. Not once did they threaten Kerry with a goal. Not once did they have a real effort at a 2-pointer where they worked it. It's like they weren't interested in going for 2-pointers. And people were talking about it online. People are saying, do Donegal know that 2-pointers exist? I can't for the life of me understand why. The deeper they got into the championship, the more they went away from attempting 2-point kicks. Like, they had frees near enough to the 2-point arc. I was like, would you not even bring Sean Patton up and let him have a go? We know we'd have the distance. Would you not try and work a shot for Darragh O'Boyle, who's in off the bench, to kick a 2-pointer? Because it was obvious in the second half. You want to get back into this game, you're going to start needing to kick 2-pointers. Because one thing's for sure, Kerry aren't done kicking 2-pointers. They're going to get another one. They're going to get another 2. And when Shawnee kicked that free, because that was a 2-pointer and Donegal had worked so hard to get 2 individual points back to back, it felt like Shawnee's free had just undone a lot of good Donegal work, and that's just deflating. Whereas if Donegal had a kick 2-pointers, say McBrearty got one, say Gallen got one, it would have really, really given them a massive shot of motivation. They never once looked like scoring a goal, though. And I think that's... Shane Ryan didn't make a save, did he?
No, but I think credit has to go to Kerry there as well. Like Kerry didn't concede a goal in the knockout stages of the All Ireland series. They conceded one versus Cavan, I think, but they didn't concede one. Yeah, they conceded one. Oh, yeah, they conceded one in that game. Yeah, but generally speaking, I mean, like goal chances have been few and far between. Like even in aside from that goal against Armagh, Tyrone as well, they obviously had a couple of early goal chances. Remember Tyrone, Matty Donnelly had the one chance, but generally speaking, like Kerry's defense has been fairly bulletproof.
It certainly has, and the thing is that the goal that Armagh got as well, we have to say, was a really bad mix-up, between Shane Ryan and Dylan Casey, where Casey waited for the ball to come out over the 40-metre arc instead of just taking the foul, and then Grugan ran in and slotted it into net. But apart from that, from open play, Kerry haven't been caught. They literally are ruthlessly good at the back, and that reminds me a lot of the 2022 team. Like when you have the forwards up front that they've got, the Paddy Cliffords, the David Cliffords, the Shawnee O'Shea's, the Dylan Gainies, what you can do is just focus on the defence. Just focus on getting your house in order at the back, and then the Cliffords and Shawnee will probably handle the rest up front. Like it's a wonderfully easy system when you put it like, and Brian put it there. Easiest All-Ireland win since 2018. And when you look at it, if Jacko goes, I think the next appointment for Kerry could really, and I mean this, there's a lot of talk that Jack O'Connor is going to go. And we're hearing that he's gone. We're hearing that he might be staying, everything like that. But if Jack O'Connor does go, Kerry's next appointment could define the next decade of Gaelic football. And I make no qualms about saying that, because when you look at the talent that they have, the age profile of the team as well, they're in a great position to have a period of dominance if they get the next managerial appointment correct. If they mess it up, and if they hire in someone who doesn't continue the work that Jack O'Connor has done, if they let this momentum fade away, then maybe, someone like Tyrone with their talent could rise and take over. The thing is that Kerry look in a fantastic position right now. There's nobody who's halfway out the door in that team. They're all at a good age profile. I think there's at least 3 more All-Irelands in this Kerry team if they get it right. I'd be interested to know what Kerry fans think is the correct next appointment if Jacko goes. I think Tomás O'Shea is an obvious candidate. I don't see them going back to a Fitzmaurice. I think he's done with management. I think Tomás O'Shea would probably be the one I would expect.
Yeah, it feels like the next appointment for Kerry is almost like when Dublin got Jim Gavin. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's the next one now to kind of, and look, I think Jack O'Connor could be that man. Look, Jack O'Connor's won 5 All-Irelands now as a Kerry manager. Like only
he doesn't tend to do back-to-back though. A lot of people talk about the stats.
And I think to be fair, he's been around. Yeah, he's been around the block for a long time, so I think he's more than within his right to step away now. To be honest with you, I think he's more than earned that. Look, he's also earned the right to stick around as well, and maybe he'll want to give it one more year, to try and see if he can maybe break that mold and go back to back. And it is interesting. Like there have been reports coming out that, like, now I haven't heard it. I've tried to find the clip. Some people said it was on the radio where he said that he was leaving, and I know like a lot of very credible people have come out and said that Jack O'Connor has announced that he's leaving. Now I haven't seen it anywhere, and I've also heard conflicting reports, some people saying that no, that's not the case, has been taken out of context. So it is going to be very interesting to see. Like, do you think Jack O'Connor will be there next year?
No, I think this is it. I'd be surprised, because the thing is when you look at him, you're looking at a GA mad man. He's crazy about the sport, and people like that do find it hard to know when to go or know when to walk away. And people like him, I feel like he's kind of cut from the same cloth as like your Mickey Harts and everything like that. That I think if Jacko does go from the Kerry senior position, I think it will be because he wants a role that has less pressure involved. But I could see Jack O'Connor going and managing the Kerry under-20s, or I could see Jack O'Connor going and managing a college team or something like that, because the guy lives, breathes, eats, sleeps Gaelic football. Like, he loves the sport, and he's one of the best managers that we've ever had in the game. 5 All-Irelands, his CV speaks for itself. He has to be considered up there on the top, with the best to ever do it. And if he wants to stay, he's absolutely earned that right. I think it would be great to see him attempt to do back-to-back to see if he can finally break that curse. Curse is definitely too strong, but break that, rhythm where he tends to win and then lose the next year. And they have absolutely the open road possibly to do that, because who knows where Donegal will be after this. Will Jim stay? We're not 100% sure. I think he will, but will Murphy stay? That there's things that could potentially change in that Donegal camp. Nobody knows where Dublin are at. No one knows where Galway are at. No one knows, is it too soon for Tyrone? What's going to be the story with Armagh? There's a lot of unknowns going into next year. The one thing that is absolutely certain is that Kerry are still going to be top of the pile going into the year. Like, you'd be a brave, brave man to say now that Kerry won't do back-to-back. And so then is that the appealing thing for Jack to stick around? The main thing as well is that it must feel nice for him to shut people up that were really coming for them when they had their bad dip in form. And the one thing, Matthew pointed it out to me, I've never understood, and sure, Brian, I know, was watching, and I was saying on my own pod, but I couldn't understand Darragh O'Shea at all this year. His comments bashing the team, saying, oh, it's a pity they didn't just draw Galway and get knocked out of the championship now and everything like that. I've never understood people who bash their own team, bash their own manager fucking season. I have never understood it. Never will attempt to. Why you think you're doing a good thing?
It's very Joe Brawley-esque kind of, isn't it?
Well, it's just like, what's the purpose? What? Yeah, he just looking to get people talking about you, as far as I'm concerned, in that regard. I don't like people who bring negativity to the sport. I don't like people who get something from laughing at other counties either. That type of negativity, just in general, I'm just not a fan of. And you look at Jacko, and I really liked it when Jacko actually punched back after the Armagh game, when he was saying, what have you done for Kerry football? What teams have you coached? To journalists that had gone after the team, ask yourself, like, what Kerry teams have you coached? What All Irelands have you won? What school teams have you coached? What college teams have you coached? And then you realize, like, Jesus, Jacko's coming with receipts here, and he has a better CV when it comes to contributing at all levels for Kerry. Almost, definitely since Mick O'Dwyer.
Yeah, I think he's underrated, isn't he, in terms of a Gaelic football manager? Like, he doesn't seem to get the credit. Like, maybe now he's getting the credit, but even before yesterday, like, he still won 4 All-Irelands. And I don't know, maybe if people look at it and think, because Kerry have a history of All-Irelands. And look, Jack O'Connor has obviously managed some very, very good Kerry teams and some very, very good Kerry players. There's no question about that. So I think a lot of people have maybe attributed the success of Kerry more so down to the players rather than the manager. And it's interesting, like, people before yesterday's final probably had, held Jim McGuinness in higher esteem than a Jack O'Connor. But that's because a lot of people, attribute the 2012 All-Ireland more so to McGuinness rather than the Donegal players. Whereas I feel like with Kerry, it's almost a role reversal. Now, I think, look, Jim McGuinness is one of the best to do it. I think it is a different scenario, and it's very, very hard to compare, and that's certainly not what we're going to do. But, like, for Jack O'Connor, he has to go down as one of the most underrated managers in Gaelic football. Like, only Jim Gavin and Mick O'Dwyer have won more All-Irelands than him.
I mean, when you put it like that, it's absolutely extraordinary that he's not talked about more. I think in terms of GAA, when we think about icons, we tend to think of people who came in, found a terrible situation, or found a team in the ruins.
Yeah, kind of like a perfect underdog story or something, yeah.
Yeah, so Jim McGuinness, as I said, came in, found Donegal, ranked number 19 in the country, and in 2 years he had them as All-Ireland champions. Like, and back-to-back Ulsters. Like, that's the stuff of legend. When you think about Kevin Heffernan coming in the early 70s, Dublin, no one in Dublin gave a shit about inter-county football. And then inside 1 year, Kevin Heffernan has the hill buzzing with Heffo's army and changes the course of Dublin Gaelic football forever. That's why Heffo's an icon. That's why Heffo's army is still talked about today by diehards that are on the hill, because he came in and saved Dublin Gaelic football, turned a team that was not good into All-Ireland champions. You'd think as well of Miko. Miko then revitalised Kerry. He made Kerry in 1 year back into All-Ireland contenders when they couldn't get out of Munster for years before that. So, and Miko then went on to win, the 4 in a row, inches away from the 5 in a row. And then he did the same thing. He came in Kildare, cashed in on that team, came in Laois, cashed in on that team, won the Leinster title. And then obviously had an amazing spell as Wicklow manager too. So people love managers who get the best out of what's there. What I would compare Jack O'Connor to, and I mean this with the greatest possible respects. I just mean it in terms of the team that he got. So the team that he got in 2004 was already established with the likes of Gooch, with the likes of Darragh O'Shea. It was already seen as the best team in the country, and it was just you needed to keep winning All-Irelands with this team. But over the course of the last 21 years, that's what Jack O'Connor has done. He's won 5 All-Irelands. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with that. What I would see him as almost, and I wonder if you agree with this, almost like what Bob Paisley is to Bill Shankly. Yeah, like Bill Shankly built Liverpool up and then he left. And Bob Paisley came in, found a winning team and just kept winning. But when people talk Liverpool's greatest ever managers, they still put Bill Shankly above Bob Paisley, even though Bob Paisley won more than Bill Shankly ever did. And that's why it's really, really interesting to look at.
Yeah, and that's why it'll be interesting now to see what happens with Kerry going into the next few years. Sean does say here, great job all year, lads. Cheers very much, Sean. Jack O'Connor will be back next year. No way he leaves with the potential that there's for the next 4 or 5 years. And Kieran
he has a way. Yeah, he has a way. Oh, let's see this.
Yeah, Kieran has an interesting comment here. This is an awful video title, very insulting to a team and manager that made it to the All-Ireland final. Disgusting, to be honest. Wouldn't have expected anything different. The anti-Donegal boys is crazy. Well, to be fair, I'm more so just asking the question. Like, that's why it's in the title, because it's a discussion that people have been speaking about Jim McGuinness and everything else. Look, I do think he was, in terms of the game, I think he was found out yesterday. Do I think he's found out as a manager? Do I think he's a bad coach or anything like that? Absolutely not. I think anyone who's followed this channel down the years will know that I've had very, very high praise for Jim McGuinness. And there's definitely no anti-Donegal boys here. Like, I backed Donegal to win an All-Ireland back in January. You can go back and watch that video. I think it's more so there's disappointment, I think, from myself and Donegal a little bit, because I think they're a much better team, and I think they let themselves down a little bit yesterday. But does that mean that Jim McGuinness is a bad coach, a bad manager, or anything of that nature? Absolutely not. I think tactically he got it wrong yesterday. He was found out a little bit, but does that mean he's bad? No. Like, he'll be back next year. Donegal will be back next year. So I don't think it's I don't think it's worth getting too offended over it.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, Kieran, if you have a look back there, literally 5 minutes ago, we were talking about how Jim picked them up when they were off the back of a horrible relegation to Division 2. They had moved from Paddy Carr to Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy Bradley, and they were flailing. And then in comes Jim McGuinness and saves the ship, not for the first time, but for the second time. And he has to then be considered, in the category of the Kevin Heffernans and people like that who came in and turned their county around and made the county fall in love with their Gaelic football team and changed the course of the county's history in terms of success and winning things. Because you look then at what Declan Bonner came in, won 2 Ulster titles in charge of that Donegal team. Would he have done that if Jim McGuinness hadn't have done what he did with the team in his first reign? Probably not. Even though the players are there, probably not. And when we were talking about Jack O'Connor deserves to be put on the podium, because not only the success he's had at senior level with the 5 All-Irelands, but the work that he's done at under 20 level. He's won All-Irelands at under 20. He's won All-Irelands at minor. He's won All-Irelands at schools, at colleges. Like, all across the board, he's won it all. And he has contributed as much as anyone has to the success of Kerry GAA. At senior level, he did come in when that Kerry team was ready to win All-Irelands. when they had one in 2000, and then they needed to go win another in 2004 because they'd lost back-to-back to Tyrone and Armagh 03 and 02. He came in and he won the All-Ireland for them in 2004. Then they won it again in 06. Pat O'Shea was in 07. He came back in, won it in 2009. He left after losing to Donegal in 2012. He came in because Kerry, after Peter Keane, they needed somebody who could get the job done. Brought back in Jack O'Connor, and he wins the All-Ireland in his first year. And he's questioned by everybody in 23 and 24, and this year from people inside his own county and outside his own county. And he wins the All-Ireland at the end of the year, proving again why he is right up there with the best to ever do it. I would compare him to someone who comes in and is they're like a Michelin star chef in a Michelin star restaurant. It's you want someone who knows how to work with the best players in Ireland. Jack O'Connor is one of the best managers to work with the best players in Ireland, because just because you have great players doesn't guarantee you're going to win all Irelands. I mean, there are plenty of teams who have had fabulous players who have never won all Irelands.
Yeah,
and 100%. It takes something special to get over the line, and Jack O'Connor seems to get over the line once every 5 years if you keep him in charge. You have to consider him as one of the greatest. And Jim McGuinness is also one of the greatest. I understand Donegal, lost the All-Ireland final. It can be very frustrating. I remember the day after the All-Ireland hurling semi-final when we lost to Cork, I wanted to punch anything that looked at me. But there's nothing but respect for Jim and for Jack here.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. Stephen says Gavin White at the start at both halves felt like Owen Merchant in the 2019 in the replay. Not as drastic. White is an absolute gazelle when he gets going. Faithful podcast here was just saying spot on, Seamus. You can be annoyed about your county, but to be making the comments like Kerry people have during the season is crazy. Just in relation to when you were talking about Jack O'Connor kind of going back and everything else. Absolutely spot on there. Maybe one thing we'll mention before we run through All Stars, David Clifford. Look, I know we had the chat a couple of weeks ago about the greatest of all time and everything else, and maybe we won't go down that debate. But maybe one thing I did want to ask is that it looks nailed on that he's going to win Footballer of the Year. But is this the best Footballer of the Year season? Is this the best individual season in Gaelic football by one player? Because to be honest with you, I struggle. I think of maybe Cluxton a little bit in 19. But there's I'm not too sure if I can think of many others.
It's very difficult, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's very difficult.
You need to properly go back and kind of remember. I remember Brian Fenton, obviously, as well. 15 was phenomenal. 17, he was very good as well.
I think Dermot Connolly in 16.
Yeah. Connolly in 16, yeah.
Connolly in 16 for me was amazing. There's plenty of Peter Canavan in 95, nearly won an All-Ireland by himself for Tyrone. Oshima Convo with Armagh 02. There's plenty of examples of outstanding players, and you can go back to the Mick O'Dwyer teams and everything like that, but obviously we didn't see them play. I think, the conversation about the greatest of all time, it's a wonderful conversation for fans to have, and it's our right as fans to have your opinion on who you think is the greatest of all time. And I think when you're looking at this, it's I think I might have said this on your pod. I said it on Matthews, but I definitely said it on one of your podcasts. I think when you're looking at the greatest of all time debate, I think it truly just comes back to, well, what matters to you? What do you define as your greatest of all time? Do you consider greatest of all time to be the peak, the level of performance that they got to? Because right now, if we're talking skill and talent and on that one day, who would I want in my team in an All-Ireland final at the best level that they ever got to? It's very hard to say that David Clifford wouldn't be the first player I'd pick to have in my team in an All-Ireland final. Personally, I would probably say Brian Fenton, slightly, but it's very, very difficult to say. I think then you have to say, well, do you define the greatest of all time as continued dominance? Do you define the greatest of all time as how many medals they won, how many All-Irelands they won? Because then you have to look at the Dublin team of the 2010s under Jim Gavin, and you have to look at the Kerry team of the 70s into the early 80s under Mick O'Dwyer. They are two teams that absolutely dominated, against very, very good teams. They dominated, swept up everything that was in front of them. Kerry have won their second All-Ireland now under Jack O'Connor, 2022 and 2025. If they win in 26, 27, let's say they put, 3 in a row together, God forbid, as a Dublin fan, obviously. But let's say if they do that, well, then it's very difficult to say he's not the greatest of all time at that point. I think it's gas as well, because I've never seen a player who people rush to rate so much as they do David Clifford. I've never seen the speed at which, he has a bad game, people call him a baller. He has a great game, people call him the greatest of all time.
I think do you know what it is? I think it's just probably fans of other counties, because he's so good and he does so much right. There probably is fans of other counties who are there, and it's like anything really in life. People are waiting for the downfall. People are just waiting for that slip up, that moment, so they can just jump in and kind of stick the dagger in. And look, I won't lie, there's a lot of Dublin fans who do it. Of course, because of the rivalry. I think there's a difference between banter a little bit and then abuse.
I hate abuse.
Abuse is no, and even I think as well with Gaelic footballers as well. It's not professional footballers. Don't get me wrong, I don't think they deserve the abuse that they necessarily get either. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that it is different in my opinion, and I don't think we should be embodying that culture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're firemen, they're guard, they're out there in public, and if they're getting abuse, there's, they have to walk on the same streets that we do. They go to the same shops that we do. They're not sheltered off in a private mansion away from all the abuse. They are very much out there of the people, and if they feel like the people are giving them abuse and hating on them, it's a pretty lonely place to be, I'd say. And we do need to be aware of that. The Take a Moment campaign a couple of years ago was absolutely fantastic. It just makes people think about what they're saying. And personally, just in general, if you are somebody who gets enjoyment out of hating people and giving abuse to people, I've no respect for you. And that's something I'll stand by. It's just, I have no respect for people that bash people, especially when they're at their lowest. The people that got their knives out after the 23 All-Ireland final when Clifford had a bad day. He didn't have a great performance. People very quickly forgot what he'd been through that year in terms of who he had lost, losing his mum. That's a pain that you can't imagine. And the way people piled in, calling him a bottler and this and that, that was really nasty to see. And the way that he came back and has just proven his greatness, it's very hard not to like the guy as well. When you see him there at a full time, with his kid and everything like that, he seems like a great guy. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him, and as a role model as well, because he does keep to himself. The hype about him and people calling him the greatest of all time and all that, he's not doing that. You know what I mean? He's not out on social media running ads and, oh, look at me, I'm with this brand and that brand. He seems like a very normal guy who is just fantastic at Gaelic football. And then the media machine gets behind him and builds him up to that astronomical level. And then once you're pushed to that level, people can't wait to rip you down. And that's the truth. So when he has a bad day, people are going to come for him. If Kerry get knocked out of the All-Ireland next year, even if Clifford scores 10 points, best believe people are going to come for him again. But when it comes to greatest of all time, for me, I would say he has had the greatest year I've ever seen. In terms of his individual performance, he's scored the most in a championship now that anybody's ever scored. He's lined up to win his 3rd Player of the Year award in 4 years, which is ridiculous. And he led from the front this year, doing that interview at the end, saying to the Kerry fans, we need you to get behind us against Armagh, leading from the front in that game, leading from the front in the Tyrone game, leading from the front in the All-Ireland final for another All-Ireland win. It's very hard to say he's not the greatest of all time now, but my thing is he's still, what is he? He's 26 now, is he?
I think he might be 25.
Let me look it up.
Yeah, what do you do with that? We'll run through some comments here. Stephen was saying, I think that what annoys people is you can't really rag him. He'll take his frustration out on scoring more and ensuring his teammates can make the runs if needed. And there was people saying last week on analysis shows that if you keep David Clifford to 8 points, Donegal should win. Tell me another player that you could say that about. It's actually mental. Yeah, no, it is.
He's 20, he's 26, by the way.
There we go.
26. And if he was to retire now from the game, I think we would look at him as like a Matt Connor type. That someone who he's definitely achieved more than Matt Connor did, with the greatest respect to Matt Connor. But that Matt Connor was seen as such one of the greatest talents that we've ever had in the game. He's already that. He's already one of the greatest players we ever had in the game. The greatest for me is dominance. Someone who can just lay out all the medals, lay out all the All-Irelands. They won everything. They left no doubt. I think when his career is finished, we'll be able to say that. So, greatest of all time now. It's hard to say it's not him, but I'm going to say just not yet. But when his career is finished, I think he will be.
100%.
And I do think he's the most talented player of all time. I think he's the best skill set I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran was saying here, I apologise, lads. Emotions are running high. That said, Jack O'Connor has been promoting Kerry football for a long time. Donegal were very flat and awful yesterday. Very, very disappointed. Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, to be fair, I might change the title. Maybe it can be misinterpreted a little bit, kind of out of context, without watching the title. So maybe we might change that. To be fair, Brian was saying here, Dublin and Kerry played some of the greatest game in the 70s, 77 and 76 were magnificent games. And also Bernard Brogan in 2010 as well. Yeah, to be fair. I was trying to think, was it 2009 or 2010? He had that absolutely. He was good in 09 as well, to be fair. But 10, was absolutely insane. Well, look, we'll run into some All-Stars. So we're going to go through the team here now. So we're just going to get the L tactical board up on the screen and kind of run through it. In terms
I haven't seen this before.
Yeah. Do you know, I used this a couple of years ago, but they didn't have a Gaelic football pitch, so I ended up having to use like a rugby pitch. But they actually have a Gaelic football pitch on it now, so it does make it a little bit easier. Tacticalboard.com. There you go. A bit of free promotion here. Need to get rid of these bleeding ads.
Get that David Union Jack logo up there in the corner.
Yeah, we need to get rid of that. But I know, to be fair, they're all right. But yeah, no, look, we'll run through the team, and we'll kind of go through it. So in terms of goalkeeper, first of all, look, I think there's two candidates. I think it's between Shane Ryan and Sean Patton. But I think, to be honest with you, I think Shane Ryan. Like, is it nailed on? I think it's fairly nailed on, to be fair.
Yeah, I think if you look throughout the course of the year, Patton definitely had an amazing year. The Ulster final, he was absolutely superb. But I think in the All-Ireland final, when you look at his kickouts, the way he was getting those short kickouts off, whereas when you look at the Donegal side, how much they struggle to get their kickouts off, I think it's very difficult to say that Patton should still go in when in the biggest game of all, Shane Ryan got his kickouts absolutely spot on. So yeah, I'm happy to put Shane Ryan in. He had a great year and worthy recipient.
Yeah, 100%. So just trying to get the lads off the field there, but because I think I didn't take them off the last time, but yeah, moving into right corner back. I mean, there's some interesting options here. Like, you have Paul Murphy, who was outstanding for Kerry this year, but the man I've actually gone for, and then the man I have kind of wrote down here, was Finbar Rorty.
Agreed.
I think he was absolutely outstanding. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely agree. I was shocked that he didn't get into the Sunday Games team of the year. I think when you look at how young he is as well, as he's 19 years old, I mean, he's come into the team, taken to it like a duck to water. Fabulous footballer. Very accomplished with ball in hand as well. Very, very composed. Very solid defender. Confident going up the field. As I said, I if I was McGuinness, I would have put him on Paddy Clifford for that All-Ireland final, and that just shows how highly I rate Rorty. I think he's unbelievable, and he's a bright future ahead. There's no doubt about it. And you might as well throw in Young Player of the Year beside him as well, because I think he's a shoe-in for that too.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of full-back, like, you've got... It is an interesting one, because like, it's between probably Brendan McCall and Jason Foley. You have Sean Rafferty in there as well for Meath. And I think it's a scenario where you could probably put 2 fullbacks in the next 2 positions potentially to try and kind of fit them in. Like I think in terms of cornerbacks, like you have Dylan Casey or Pater Mogan, I think, who would get in the conversation. But in terms of fullback, who would be your choice?
I would agree with the Sunday game team of the year for this position. I would go Jason Foley. I think when you look at Kerry's defence, how solid they were in the games against Armagh, Tyrone and Donegal when it really mattered, there was never a hint of conceding a goal. And that has to come from the spine of the defence. You know, Donegal's defence, Kerry cut it open at times. They nearly got another goal, but for Conor O'Donnell clearing it off the line before Joe O'Connor eventually smashed in his goal. And Gavin White's definitely going to be in our half-back line. The two of them, Gavin White and Jason Foley, were superb all year round. And when you're the spine of the most dominant defence in the country, I think you have to be an all-star.
Yeah, as I was saying, like in terms of left cornerback, I've pushed Sean Rafferty in the theme that I've kind of wrote down here. Like I think he's been phenomenal for me this year, and I think he does deserve to get in the team. Look, I can understand Pater Mogan had a phenomenal year. I think Dylan Casey was very good as well. But I think Sean Rafferty was outstanding for Meath. And I know sometimes there is this thing with putting players kind of out of their position sometimes in team of the years. And I know sometimes that can frustrate a few people, but I just think, look, for when you're naming the best 15, I think he has to get in it.
Yeah, I think Sean Rafferty has to go in. I think as well, like people talk about him picking up Shane Walsh. I mean, and the job that he did on Shane Walsh. Well, Shane Walsh doesn't always play at full forward. Shane Walsh often goes into the corner. So Rafferty is very capable of playing a cornerback. Yes, he is an absolute man mountain and he probably prefers playing at the edge of the square. Very old style fullback, kind of cut from the same cloth as your Mick Lyons, your Darren Fay, a proper Meath fullback. You know, you can throw it back to Paddy Hans O'Brien back in the 50s and everything like that. That's the cloth that this guy Rafferty is cut from. So, yeah, I think worthy recipient of an all-star. Harsh on Brendan McCole, but I think when you're looking at that full-back line, I'm happy. I had this exact same one written down. Rorty, Foley and Rafferty. I don't disagree with any of our picks so far.
There we go, yeah. And then moving into number 5, Brian O'Begley's the man I have in there.
Read again.
There we go, yeah. We didn't rehearse this, I swear. There's a disagreement somewhere.
We have half a brain cell each, lads. We're putting it together to make this team.
Yeah, like in terms of shout outs, look, I think Ryan McHugh is in the mix. I actually think Donald Keoghan again had another Meath footballer I thought was outstanding. But we will
call for me to get as a shout too.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll put Brian O'Begley now. Obviously, he has a bit of a long name, so we'll put that in maybe in a moment. But in terms of
tell you how to spell it.
There we go. You know, we'll put you on the spot there. So we'll go
Brian, and then O for it.
Yeah, I don't think we have this on the keyboard, unfortunately. Okay. We're gonna just have to make do, unfortunately.
So BAGLAOICH.
That's right, yeah. There we go. There we are. We got him in. In a centre back then is interesting, like, because like even kind of looking at it here in terms of the notes of players that have wrote down. So again, in terms of an actual centre back, there weren't too many standout players. Like Mike Breen was strong. Sean Coffey was strong for Meath. Owen Ban Gallagher, was in the mix as well. But I've actually put Gavin White here because I've got someone else at number 7.
I have too. I'd be very interested to see who you have at 7. I have Gavin White in. I'll tell you what. We'll name number 7, and then I'll give a run through of why I picked 5, 6, and 7 all together as a half back line. So Gavin White goes in at 6. I've gone Shane O'Donnell at 7.
Shane O'Donnell, interesting.
Donegal. I think if you look at O'Donnell, he's played everywhere. He's played in half forward line, midfield, half back line. He's one of those key link players from defence to attack for Donegal. And I thought he was harshly done by to not get into the Sunday game team of the year. And he's in my team of the year.
That's definitely an interesting one. I had Shane O'Donnell as a player kind of mention, but more so like for kind of the half forward line as such. I do agree with you though as well. Like he kind of has ended up in numerous different positions. But the man I've actually gone for here is Kieran McGeary of Tyrone. I thought he had a very, very good year. He is the only Tyrone player that gets in there. And there was another Tyrone player that we'll get onto that I'm still kind of 50-50 on in terms of the forwards, in terms of whether we can sneak him in. We'll kind of come to that in the comments. But we've gone for Kieran McGeary there. In terms of midfield, I feel like it is the most kind of nailed on one in terms of Micheál Langan and Joe O'Connor. Like, is there any disagreements in terms of any of them?
No, Joe O'Connor at 8, Michael Langan at 9. I think when you look at it, just to run through the half-back line as well, starting with Brina Buglick, because we haven't really done an individual piece on as far back as that. Buglick this year has, in my opinion, stepped out of, I think he's always been a bit underrated. But as I was mentioned there, when injuries happen to the likes of Tom O'Sullivan, when injuries happened to the likes of Tyg Morley, Buglick really stepped up and he was absolutely sensational throughout the course of the year. So too did Gavin White. You look at his performance in the All-Ireland final, 3 points, driving forward at the start of the first half, driving forward at the start of the second half. Outrageously good Gaelic footballer and outrageously good captain. And that was a true captain's performance and he deserves to go in there at 6. Kieran McGeary is a very, very good shout. As I said, I went with Shane O'Donnell, but obviously I'm the guest here. This is your team. So McGeary will go in. But he's a very, very worthy candidate. Has recovered that Footballer of the Year form that he had in 2021. And for Tyrone, he was absolutely fantastic all throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, I think some other shouts in midfield as well. I think Mark O'Shea, actually, to be honest with you, had a very underrated year in terms of or like an underrated shout, I should say. I thought he was outstanding for Kerry, in fairness. And Brian Menton as well, very good for Meath. And you saw the effects that Meath had when he went off. In at number 10, I've got, again, it's you know, it's kind of interesting kind of when you look through the forwards, because we've had some brilliant players in the full forward line. In the half forward line, there's a few players you can mention, and there's a few kind of nailed on ones. So maybe we'll go with a nailed on one first before we kind of come to the rest of them. So in terms of a nailed on at 11, would we both go with Sean O'Shea here? I think we'd both agree with that. 100%.
Yeah, Sean, he's in.
Absolutely. So we'll throw Sean O'Shea in there in a moment. And we're putting David Clifford and Michael Murphy in as well, surely.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And then when we're looking at number 10, so the player I've gone at 10 is actually Matthew Costello of Meath. I thought he'd a very solid season for Meath. And again, you know, a Dublin man throwing another Meath man in here, just, you know, who said I'm biased or whatever. But yeah, no, like Matthew Costello has been outstanding. Like his performance versus Dublin, I remember in that game, thought he was very good versus Louth as well. He was outstanding versus Kerry. So no, I've gone with a bit of an outside one in terms of Matthew Costello, but I'd be curious to know what your pick would have been there.
I went with Paddy at 10. Paddy Clifford is my number 10. I think he's been absolutely wonderful. I think he has to be another shoe-in. I hope to God you have Paddy in somewhere in your forward line.
No, I actually haven't put him in.
Are you taking the piss?
Yeah. And do you want to know why though? Because I've gone back and I've looked through the year. So Paddy Clifford, he was sent off versus Cork in the Munster Championship. He was then injured up until the end of the Armagh game, basically, when he came back. So he came on for the last 15 minutes. I think Matthew Costello at 10, Sean O'Shea 11. I've got Conor O'Donnell at 12 because of the 3 full forwards I've got. So I haven't put him in. Now look, maybe I could be convinced. Who knows? Maybe we could throw him in.
I think I'll sell it to you because I think I know who one of your full forwards is.
Who are we going with?
I think you've got Jordan Morris in your full forward line.
I actually don't know. It's another.
Oh my God!
It's Owen Frayne. I've put
Owen Frayne. Owen Frayne's a very good shout. I nearly went. To be honest, I'm on the fence myself. I haven't done my team yet, but I'm very much can't make my mind up between Owen Frayne or Jordan Morris. I think because what I would say is when you look at Paddy when he came back, he tore it up in the 2 most important games of the year for Kerry. And that 10 over the years has been the performances that have decided All-Stars. Who did it on the big day when it really mattered? Would Kerry have won the All-Ireland without Paddy? difficult to say, really. You know, you look at the form of David, it's very hard to say that wouldn't have been the case. Me personally, my 6 forwards, I'll tell you now, I've got Paddy, Sean O'Shea, Michael Murphy at 12, but, you know, obviously rotating into the forward line, everything like that. And then full forward line, I've got Jordan Morris, Owen Frayne, and David Clifford. That's my 6.
Yeah, see the other one.
Sorry. No Jordan Morris. My 6 forwards is Paddy Clifford at 10, Sean O'Shea at 11, Michael Murphy at 12, Conor O'Donnell at 13, David Clifford at 14, Owen Frayne at 15, and David Clifford Footballer of the Year.
Yeah, Stephen says Paddy at 10. Dubliners Grace says Paddy Clifford should be at 12. Look, like Paddy Clifford in the semi and the final, it was absolutely outrageous. There's no getting away from that. But I'm just trying to look at the overall year. But then again, doing it in the semi-final and final, I suppose it probably does carry a bit more weight than doing it in a.
Because I'd be interested to see. I'm fascinated to see who's your number 12 now. Is it Oisin Connaughton?
No, Oisin Connaughton was one I considered. No, the man I actually went for was Conor O'Donnell. So I brought him down. No, I think that's the one. That was the one with Paddy Clifford. I was kind of looking at the two of them. I was kind of bringing Conor O'Donnell down. But no, we'll throw Owen Frayne at 13 anyway. We'll lock that. I think we'll lock that one in. But yeah, do you know what? I think you might have convinced me in Paddy Clifford. Maybe I might sneak him in.
Well, sure. Conor O'Donnell was man of the match against Monaghan, and he was superb in the semi-final against Meath. I thought in the All-Ireland final against Kerry, I thought he was actually Donegal's best forward. He was consistently chipping over a couple of scores. He cleared that shot off the line from David Clifford. He was, he's definitely doing his bit.
Yeah. Does that mean Owen Frayne drops out though? And that seems a bit harsh as well. But
my team, Matthew Costello dropped out.
Yeah.
That's the only difference between my team and your team then.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we do have too many Mead men in there, to be fair. Maybe we need to I don't know, take one out maybe or something.
Well, I will say Mead, were superb in the group stages. Obviously they had that amazing win against Galway in the quarterfinal. But if I were a Tyrone person looking at this, I'd see 3 Meath players in and one Tyrone player in. And they made it to the same stage of the year.
Well, do you know what though? I was looking at Dara Canavan for here as well. I was looking at him for that position in a 13. But again, it was just looking through scores as well and kind of looking back through highlights and stuff like that to try and kind of refresh yourself as much as you can. I kind of settled more so on Frayne. I did think he had a better semi-final than Canavan did. So that was ultimately what kind of led Frayne in there. But yeah, do you know what? I think it's probably right. I think probably Paddy Clifford should probably be in at 10, probably over Matthew Costello. Now that I'm kind of coming to my senses, maybe
have a little bit more. You got a few DMs off Kerry fans already.
That's it. Yeah, do you know? I'm afraid of the backlash as well. Do you know? No, we'll throw Paddy Clifford in there, and then we'll put Conor O'Donnell. Conor O'Donnell in here. But look, it is an interesting debate, and I think it was more so for me, not so much that Paddy Clifford has been, I think sometimes when you leave players out, people just automatically think that you don't rate them or you don't think they're good or anything like that. That wasn't the case. It was just more so I was going back and I was thinking, geez, Paddy Clifford actually hasn't played a whole lot. Like, you know what I mean? He came off the bench versus Armagh, played the semi-final and final. Now, it probably is worth mentioning when he came off the bench versus Armagh, that was also coincidentally around the same time that Kerry went on that absolute tear up, versus Armagh. So that probably does need to be mentioned as well. Stephen does say Kieran Moore has been great all year too. He has been as well. To be fair, he deserves a mention.
Oh yeah, he was brilliant, and he obviously kicked that winner against Mayo, which knocked them out of the championship. And he was bolting forward all year from defensive positions and just a key ball carrier for Donegal throughout the course of the year. Definitely deserves a shout, but I think his quiet final, I think, is ultimately what cost him a spot.
Yeah, and look, there was no, I mean, there was never in a million years we were going to take David Clifford out of the team. But in terms of players who played in that position, look, I think Oisin Gallen deserved the show. And I know Clifford obviously wore 14 on his back the majority of the time, but we've put him in at 15. But no, Oisin Gallen, to be fair, maybe deserves a bit of a mention as well.
Oisin Gallen, yeah. Oisin Gallen definitely deserves a mention. I think I was very, very surprised when Jim took him off.
Yeah, that was an interesting
I
one.
was very surprised because I was thinking, you've got a left-footed kicker on already in Conor O'Donnell. You're bringing on another left-footed kicker in McBrearty. You're taking off the right-footed kicker in Gallen. Now, I know Michael Murphy obviously can kick them, but Gallen tends to be more the type that comes off the shoulder and has a pop. Murphy tends to be in around the square or out around the middle, linking the play together, whereas Gallen is the bit of the finisher. I was surprised, and he'd already kicked 3 points, which showed that he was on it, whereas there were other players that weren't on it. So I was very surprised when Gallen got taken off, and I think he's been a little inconsistent in other games over the course of the year. Jim hasn't started him in other games as well, so I think it would be a generous all-star, but it also has to go without saying that he has had a great year.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I think we'll very much lock that team in. Is there anyone else that we haven't mentioned do you think maybe could deserve maybe a bit of a shout? I did see on TikTok a few people, and I know that's not always a great source of information, but I did see a few people kind of mention Samuel Roy as a shout again. I know he got in last year. I don't know if you can put him in this year. I know he had a brilliant year for Louth, but I don't know if can you put him in?
No, like.
Do any Dublin players get a bit of a show?
No. Unfortunately.
It's grim, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I do think one that you have to look at is, I think across the board, I thought Michael McKernan was in outstanding form before he got injured. He was, yeah. Michael McKernan was looking like a nailed-on all-star up until the point that he got injured. So I think he's unfortunate there. Oisin Connaughton definitely deserves a shout. I'd actually thought Oran Murdoch as well, and Conor Glass for Down and for Derry. I thought both of them were
Oran
amazing.
Murdoch actually, that's good.
Murdoch was Pat Havern had some unbelievable individual displays as well, and you do feel for players like that because you're like once you go out with a championship at an early stage, like Havern kicked I think 12 points in one game or something crazy like that. I mean, you can't really do much more to put yourself in the conversation, but once you go out with the championship at the stage that they went out with the championship, you're never going to get an all-star, unfortunately. And that's the reality. I would say Louth had an amazing season winning the Leinster title, but in terms of all-stars, they did fall off the wagon fairly severely when they went into the All-Ireland series after the Leinster Championship. So I don't think all-star would be what I would say. I think you have to get to at least the quarterfinal stage if you want to be considered all-star material.
Yeah, and I think as well, like even the players that you look at from the quarterfinals, like if we were looking at the hurling team of the year, like everyone had Cathal Mannion in it, and that's because his form was just absolutely outrageous. Do you know what I mean? Like it needs
still made the quarterfinal.
Yeah. So it needs to be kind of like high level. Brian was saying here, Conor O'Callaghan has been Dublin best player this year. Sean Bugler had a brilliant league campaign. Yeah, like it was interesting with Bugler. Like when I was thinking of shouts and everything else, I went back and looked at Bugler's campaign, and in the championship it actually was quite quiet. Now he was kind of in and out with injury and everything else, but I don't think you could consider him, to be honest with you. And Con was very good as well, but no, I don't think I don't even know if any Dublin players will even get nominated, which might be I don't know when the last time that happened.
First time since the 2000s anyway.
100%. But look, that's the team. We'll read it out for anyone who maybe can't see or anything like that, or maybe who just to kind of call it out so we can see it. So Shane Ryan in goal, Finbar Rorty, Jason Foley, Sean Rafferty make up the full back line. The half back line is Brian O'Begley, Gavin White, Kieran McGeary in the half back line, Joe O'Connor and Michael Langan in midfield, and then half back line, or half forward line I should say, is Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea and Conor O'Donnell. And then the full forward line is Owen Frayne, Michael Murphy, and David Clifford. So there we go. Then that is the team. And I think with that as well, we will wrap it up. But maybe one question to finish up on from Jack here: are Kerry favourites next year? I think they are. I think
you have to say so. Yeah, 100%, because they've won the All Ireland in a landslide. whenever you win the All-Ireland in a landslide, you have to be favourites to go do it again.
Yeah, 100%. But look, hopefully, I don't know, can the Dubs come back? Probably not. But look, hopefully someone else will stop them if we can't. But yeah, no, cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe if you could. Make sure to check out On Clifford, Seamus's podcast when you get a chance as well. And yeah, for anyone who did tune in, let us know your comments as well in terms of your team of the year, your all-stars and everything else. Do let us know in the comments. And yeah, until the next one, we will speak to you all later.